The Orion spaceship drifted to the cold, dark silence of space. For 300 years, it had been traveling, carrying a crew of scientists and explorers, all on a mission to find a new home for humanity. Earth, a dying world, had sent them on this long journey in search of a new planet to colonize. But as the years stretched into centuries, the crew's hope had slowly faded. They had passed countless empty stars, their journey growing longer and more isolated. Inside the ship, the crew moved about in routine, the quiet hum of the engines their only constant companion. They no longer talked much about Earth or their original mission. It was hard to stay hopeful when they had no idea if they were even close to finding another world. But then, something unexpected happened. It started with a flicker on the ship's communication panel. A faint, broken signal, barely audible, came through the vast emptiness. It was just static at first, but as the crew listened closer, the static began to form words. The captain, Lena, leaned over the console, eyes wide with disbelief. It was a distress signal. The message was clear, and the tone of it sent a chill down her spine. "Do not land. It is watching." The words echoed in the quiet room. The signal was old, ancient even, but there was something in the tone that felt urgent. Something wrong. They had been receiving this transmission for hours, and yet it was only getting worse. The signal was coming from a ship that had gone missing decades ago, another ship that had disappeared in the vastness of space, never to be found again. Lena looked at the crew, her face pale. This was not a normal transmission. Something was very wrong. "We need to find out where it's coming from," she said, her voice firm despite the unease gnawing at her. "Prepare the scanners. I want to know everything about this signal." The crew scrambled to comply. They powered up the scanners, trying to track the source of the transmission. But as they worked, the ship's sensors began to glitch. Something was interfering with the system. Every time they tried to get a clear reading, the signal would distort, making the coordinates unreadable. After what felt like hours, they finally pinpointed the source. It was coming from a dead planet on the edge of the galaxy, a place no one had ever explored. The planet was dark, uninhabited, its surface cold and barren. But there was something about it, something that didn't sit right. The transmission had been coming from there, and the message, it was a warning about something waiting on that planet. The crew debated the next move. They were supposed to be exploring new worlds, finding new homes for humanity. But this was different. The signal wasn't just a distress call. It was a warning. And yet, they couldn't ignore it. The transmission had come from a lost ship, and that ship had been lost for a reason. Something was waiting there, and they needed to know what it was. Lena made the decision. "Prepare to land. We're going to investigate." The crew hesitated, but they had no choice. Their mission had always been to explore, to push the boundaries of human knowledge. They couldn't turn back now, not after hearing the signal. As the ship descended toward the planet, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The planet was dark, but there was an eerie glow coming from its surface. It didn't look like any planet they had seen before. The glow was unnatural, like a dim, flickering light just below the surface. Lena sat in the cockpit, her eyes fixed on the planet below. She felt uneasy, but she pushed the feeling aside. They had come too far to turn back now. The ship touched down on the barren planet with a soft thud, and the crew disembarked, their boots sinking into the dust. The air was cold and thin, and the ground felt unstable beneath their feet. The planet was dead. There was no sign of life. But the strange glow on the horizon grew stronger, drawing them forward like a moth to a flame. They followed the glow, moving through the dusty landscape, their steps heavy and cautious. As they got closer, they saw what was causing the light, a massive structure half buried in sand. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The structure seemed ancient, its walls covered in strange markings that none of them could recognize. Lena led the crew forward, her heart pounding in her chest. There was something about this place that felt wrong, but they had to know what it was. As they entered the structure, the temperature dropped, and the air became thick with dust. The walls were covered in more markings, but these were different. They weren't just symbols. They were warnings that something was here, something that had been waiting for them. The crew moved deeper into the structure, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air grew colder, and the silence became deafening. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Then, suddenly, the lights on their equipment flickered. The ground beneath them trembled, and the ship's navigation system suddenly malfunctioned. The console beeped loudly, and Lena stared at the screen in horror. The ship was being pulled off course, heading directly toward the planet's surface. The crew rushed back to the ship, but it was too late. The planet's gravity was too strong, pulling them in like a trap. The ship was out of control, and they couldn't stop it. Get to the controls. Lena shouted, "We need to regain control." But it was no use. The ship plummeted toward the surface, and the crew braced themselves for impact. The ground was coming up fast, and the eerie glow from below grew brighter, casting long, twisted shadows across the ship. With a violent jolt, the ship crashed into the planet's surface, throwing the crew to the ground. The once quiet ship now sat in the dust, the crew dazed but alive. Lena struggled to stand, her head spinning. She looked out the window, her heart racing. The planet was darker than ever, but the strange glow had intensified. It wasn't just coming from the structure, it was coming from everywhere. And then, through the cracked windows, Lena saw it. The shadow. It was massive, like a dark, shifting cloud. But there was something in it, something that didn't belong. Something watching them. Lena's heart skipped a beat. The message had been right. It wasn't just a planet. It was a trap. And whatever was on this planet had been waiting for them all along. They had made the mistake of landing. And now it was too late to leave. The crew could only watch in horror as the shadow moved closer, and the planet's strange glow seemed to grow brighter, swallowing them whole. They had found the truth. But it was a truth that no one should have known. The planet's surface was silent. No wind, no movement, no signs of life. Just a deep, endless quiet that pressed on the crew like a heavy blanket. Orion's landing had been rough, but the ship was mostly intact. The crew stepped out in their protective suits, looking around with wide, nervous eyes. The sky above them was a dull gray, filled with strange clouds that didn't move. The sand was dark, almost black, and stuck to their boots like ash. The light that came from the glowing horizon had no source. It simply existed, like the planet itself was alive and watching. Captain Lena led the group forward, scanning the area with her helmet sensors. The readings were strange. The atmosphere was thick with chemicals that shouldn't be there. Breathing outside the suits was impossible. The air itself felt hostile, like it was trying to push them out. The crew walked slowly, alert to every shadow, every flicker in the corner of their vision. The signal had brought them here, a warning from a long-lost ship. And now, standing on this dead world, they could feel something was very wrong. "Anyone else feel that?" whispered Connor, the engineer. "Feel what?" asked Dr. Yara, the biologist. "Like we're being watched." Nobody answered. They all felt it too. As they moved toward a nearby hill, the sand shifted beneath them. At the top, they saw it, a massive structure, half buried in the ground, ancient and broken. Its surface was made of some unknown metal, and strange carvings ran along its walls. The symbols looked almost human, but twisted. Wrong. Lena stepped closer. Her glove brushed one of the carvings, and a sudden wave of dizziness hit her. She stumbled back, gasping for air inside her suit. Her vision swirled, and for a moment, she saw something. Eyes. Dozens of glowing eyes, watching her from the walls. "Captain?" Yara caught her arm. "You okay?" Lena nodded slowly. "Yeah, just a flash. It's this place." They decided to explore the structure. It had a large opening like a doorway, though it was shaped more like a jagged wound in the wall. Inside, the darkness swallowed their lights quickly. The deeper they went, the colder it got, even though the planet's surface was hot. The walls were covered in more carvings. Some looked like humans, standing in rows. Others were creatures, tall, thin, with long limbs and no faces. And in every image, the creatures were watching. They reached a wide chamber filled with dust and broken stone. In the center was a tall column, cracked and blackened. Around were small objects, bones, but not like any animal bones. These were shaped like hands. Human hands. Hundreds of them. Yara knelt beside them. These are old. Very old. But why just the hands? Nobody had an answer. Then something shifted behind them. They turned, flashlights sweeping the shadows. Nothing. But then the comms crackled. Lena? Lena, come in. It was Harlan, one of the crew members who had stayed outside to monitor the ship. This is Lena. What's wrong? Static. Then Harlan's voice again, weaker this time. I think I saw something. It's moving near the ship. The signal cut out. Lena tried to call him back. No response. Just silence. We need to get back, she said. But as they turned, they noticed someone missing. Where's Theo? Asked Connor, his voice tight. They looked around. Theo had been right behind them. Now he was gone. They shouted his name. Checked their scanners. Nothing. Split up? Connor suggested. Lena shook her head. No, we stick together. We're going back to the ship. They rushed out of the structure, retracing their steps through the dark halls. The walls seemed to shift as they passed, the carvings almost moving when no one was looking directly at them. When they reached the outside, the ship was still there, but the air felt even thicker now, like the planet was pressing against their suits. They found Harlan's helmet lying in the sand. No sign of him. No blood. No struggle. Just gone. Lena felt her chest tighten. This wasn't just a dead planet. Something was here. As they climbed the ramp to re-enter the ship, their comms flickered again. Lena? It was Theo's voice. We never left. Everyone froze. Where are you? Lena asked, her hand shaking. No reply. Only static. Inside the ship, the lights were flickering. The systems were unstable. The logs were scrambled. And there was a strange noise coming from the lower deck. A soft whispering. Like voices. Hundreds of them. Lena sent Connor and Yara to secure the upper levels while she went below. Every step echoed in the silence. The whispering grew louder. It wasn't just in her ears. It was in her head. She reached the lower deck. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside was darkness. And then movement. A figure stood at the end of the hall. Tall, thin. Its body was pale, almost glowing. It looked human, but its face was missing. Lena took a step back. The figure tilted its head, as if curious, and then it disappeared. She ran. Up the stairs, back to the bridge. Her heart was pounding, her breaths loud in her helmet. Connor and Yara were already there, trying to restart the engines. We're not alone, Lena said. We know, Yara replied. We've been hearing them too. What do we do? Connor asked. Lena looked out the window at the dark planet. We leave, she said. Now. They worked together, powering up the engines, resetting the systems. The ship groaned and shuddered, but it started to lift. As they rose into the sky, the glow on the planet grew brighter. And for a moment, they saw it, far below, staring up at them, a massive figure. Tall, watching. The planet shrank behind them, but the whispering didn't stop. Even in space, it followed them. They listened in silence. And then one last message crackled through the comms. We never left. The transmission ended, and the ship drifted into the stars once more. The storm had passed, but something had changed. The sand outside the Orion was no longer still. It moved slightly as if breathing. The crew stared at the screens in silence, watching the dust swirl in strange patterns. Something beneath the surface had shifted. Inside the ship, Lena reviewed the data they collected from the ancient structure. Symbols, bones, whispers. But now, something else had appeared on the scans. Deep underground tunnels, hidden beneath the surface of the planet. They formed a network too perfect to be natural. Could be burial chambers, said Dr. Yara, adjusting her glasses. Or maybe not burial. Connor stood beside her, frowning. You think they're still down there? Something is. Yara replied quietly. Lena gathered the team. We need to go back. Find out what's under this planet before it finds us first. They suited up again and left the ship, this time with more weapons and sensors. The sand beneath their boots felt warmer than before, and the air was thick with static. The silence had returned, but it felt different, like holding your breath in a room where something dangerous waits. They followed the scans to a large crater not far from the ship. At the bottom, a crack had opened wide in the ground, revealing a dark tunnel lined with stone. The air coming out of it was colder than space itself. "This wasn't here yesterday," Connor whispered. "No," Lena said. "It wasn't." They climbed down slowly, lights scanning the walls. Strange symbols ran along the sides, glowing faintly when touched. The deeper they went, the more the walls changed. Metal replaced stone, and carvings gave way to machinery covered in dust. Then they reached a massive chamber. In the center were dozens of tall, narrow pods, each one connected to the ceiling by thick, black cables. Inside the foggy glass of the pods, something moved. "They look human," Yara whispered, stepping closer. Lena placed her hand on one of the pods. The glass was cold, and the figure inside had pale skin, long limbs, and a face that looked human, almost, but the eyes were too large, the fingers too long. "Are they alive?" Connor asked. Before anyone could answer, the lights flickered. A low hum began to rise from the floor. Then one of the pods cracked. The crew jumped back as the glass shattered and a cold mist poured out. The being inside stepped forward slowly, joints popping. It stood tall and still, breathing in the air like it was tasting it. Its eyes opened. They glowed blue. Lena raised her weapon. "Back away. Now." The creature didn't move. It just stared. Then another pod cracked. Then another. "They're waking up," Yara said. "All of them." The crew turned and ran, the sound of breaking glass chasing them through the tunnels. The hum grew louder, like a machine turning on for the first time in centuries. As they climbed out of the crater, something strange happened. Harlan, who had been silent the whole mission, stopped walking. Lena turned to him. "Harlan, what's wrong?" He didn't answer. His eyes were blank, staring up at the sky. Then he whispered, "They're speaking." "What?" "They're calling to us," he said, almost smiling. Lena grabbed his arm. "Snap out of it." But he didn't move, and then he began to walk slowly back toward the crater. "Stop him," Connor shouted. They ran after him, but Harlan was fast, unnaturally fast. He reached the edge and dove into the darkness without a sound. Lena stopped at the top, staring down, but he was already gone. They returned to the ship, shaken and quiet. The doors sealed behind them with a hiss. Inside, the lights flickered again. Systems were failing. The engines wouldn't start. "Something's interfering with the power," Yara said, "like it's inside the ship." Then they heard footsteps. Soft, slow, unnatural. Connor turned to the hallway, weapon raised. "What was that?" Lena took a deep breath. "They're inside." They moved together, down the corridor. The ship creaked as if something heavy was walking through it. The whispering returned, louder now, filling every corner of their minds. Then they saw it, a figure at the end of the hall. Harlan, but his eyes were glowing. He tilted his head, smiling strangely. "It's beautiful. The voice, it's everywhere." He took a step forward, and something moved behind him. Another figure, pale, tall, eyes glowing with hunger. Lena opened fire. The shots hit, but the creature didn't fall. It staggered, then rushed forward with inhuman speed. They ran, back to the command deck, sealed the doors. "We can't stay here," Connor said, panting. "They'll break through." "We need to reset the ship systems manually," Lena said. "Cut the power, reboot everything. Maybe it'll stop the interference." Connor nodded and ran to the engine room. Yara and Lena stayed behind, watching the cameras. The creatures were moving through the halls. Not just one. Dozens now, all waking from the pods, all walking toward the bridge. Then the power cut. Darkness. Silence. Only the sound of breathing. Lena waited. Seconds felt like hours. Then the lights returned. Connor's voice came over the comms. "Systems back. They've stopped moving." Lena looked at the screen. The creatures had frozen in place. For now, she turned to Yara. We can't let them leave this planet. What do we do? Lena stared at the map of the tunnels below. We find the control center. Whatever's waking them, whatever's calling them, it's down there. She picked up her weapon and walked toward the hatch. The sleepers were awake. But so was she. The silence after the reset didn't last long. Deep within the halls of the Orion, something moved again. Not fast, not loud, just slow, soft footsteps that never stopped. Lena gripped her weapon tighter, standing with Yara and Connor as the ship's dim lights flickered once more. They had hoped cutting the power would stop the interference, stop the whispers. But now it seemed whatever had awakened wasn't just outside. It was already here. Connor checked the cameras. Some of them are gone. They're not showing up on sensors anymore. That's not good, Yara said, tapping furiously at the console. They're either hiding or we've lost our system again. Suddenly, a voice came over the comms. It was Harlan. Guys, it's me. I'm okay. I got out. Lena's eyes went wide. That's not possible. We saw him. He changed. The voice continued, soft and desperate. Please, I need help. I'm in the lower engine room. Yara's hand trembled over the controls. Should we check? No, Lena said firmly. It's not him. Another voice followed. This time, it was Dr. Yara's voice, her exact tone, pitch, everything. Lena, help me. Please, it's dark down here. Yara looked at Lena in horror. That's not me? They're copying us, Lena whispered, mimicking voices. Connor stepped away from the console. They know how to lure us in. They want us to follow. The hallway outside the command room echoed with faint voices now. Familiar voices, calling names, begging, whispering things only the real people would know. Lena remembered the ruins, the carvings, the pods. These creatures, they weren't just alien. They were once like them. Or worse, they had become like them. And now they wanted the crew to join them. The trio locked down the command deck. But the ship groaned as if something heavy pressed against it from all sides. Footsteps came and went, and always the voices. When not the first, Yara said after hours of watching, "Look at this." She pulled up old mission logs buried in the Orion's archives. There were other expeditions, lost ships no one ever talked about. They disappeared in this sector centuries ago. They came here, Connor said, and they never left. They couldn't, Lena replied, because this planet, it feeds on them, transforms them. The hollow ones weren't born. They were made by the planet, by whatever was under it. The crew had no choice. They needed to find the source, stop the transformation from spreading, or they'd all become part of the next group used to lure in more victims. They left the command deck with what weapons they had left. The hallways felt tighter, colder, as if the ship itself was closing in. The lights flickered every few seconds, just long enough to make you unsure what you saw. At one point, they found Alvarez, or what used to be him. He stood in the hallway, staring at the wall, whispering to it. His body was thin, too thin, like something inside had been hollowed out. His eyes were dull. His voice was his, but without life. Lena raised her weapon. He turned and spoke in her voice. "Don't hurt me." She hesitated. Just for a moment. He lunged. It took both Connor and Yara to pull her back and fire. The hollow one fell, twitching, the mimicry gone. They moved on, down into the lower parts of the ship near the cargo bay, where the interference was strongest. There they found signs of another crew, remains of people in different uniforms, faded with age, hundreds of years old. Their ship must have been pulled in like Orion, and they never escaped. Lena knelt beside a data tablet, still clutched in a skeletal hand. She wiped it off and read the last message. "The planet is alive. It wants minds, not bodies. We're just echoes now. Run, before you're emptied too." Connor looked around. How do we fight something that steals our voices, our minds? Yara whispered. "We don't let it take us." They entered the central core room, where the ship's brain was housed. That's where they saw it. A hollow one, unlike the others. Taller, smarter, it didn't attack. It just stood there, watching, and then it spoke. All their voices at once. Why run? You came to find a home. This is your home now. The crew fired, but the figure vanished in the smoke, reforming behind them, whispering through the vents. Lena screamed, "What do you want from us?" It answered, "To remember, to feel, to live again. Through you." The crew set explosives. They would destroy the core if they had to, cut the brain, stop the hive. As they prepared, one of the voices came through again. It was Lena's father. She froze. He had died before she left Earth. "Lena, don't be afraid. I'm proud of you." Tears formed in her eyes. "That's not real." "It could be." Yara pulled her back. "Don't listen." The core began to hum. The hollow ones were trying to absorb it, take over the ship fully. Connor slammed the activation button on the timer. "Let's go." They ran. Back to the shuttle bay. Lights flickered. Voices screamed. The hollow ones chased, crawling, limping, whispering. They reached the shuttle just in time. As the engines powered up, Lena looked back. She saw one last figure. It was Harlan. Not changed yet. Maybe not fully. He raised a hand. "Help me?" She hesitated. Tears burned her eyes. But then his face shifted. It smiled too wide. She closed the hatch. The shuttle launched just as the core exploded. The Orion was gone. The voices stopped. In the silence of space, Lena sat shaking. Yara beside her. Connor piloting. They were alive. But she knew the truth now. They had only escaped a piece of it. The hollow ones weren't gone. They were inside people. And one crew member whispered something before they passed out. "It's inside us." The stars outside the shuttle blinked slowly, like dying eyes. Inside, Lena sat silent. Her face was pale, her mind still echoing with the voices from the Orion. They had escaped the hollow ones, but not without a cost. One of them, Yara, was still unconscious. Connor did his best to keep the shuttle stable, but the systems were damaged and the fuel was low. "We need somewhere to go," he said, voice tight. "Anywhere." Lena nodded slowly. She opened the ship's navigation scanner, hoping to find a friendly station, a supply point, something. But space around them was empty, silent, cold. Then the signal came. It was faint but strong enough to get their attention. A pulse. Not like the hollow ones. Not a mimic. Something deeper. Like the sound of the universe breathing. Connor stared at the screen. "That is a black hole." Lena leaned in. "But that's not possible. It shouldn't be here." It wasn't just any black hole. It looked clean, sharp, like it was waiting, floating quietly, but not swallowing anything around it, just waiting. Yara moaned softly. She opened her eyes, blinking. Lena grabbed her hand. "You're okay. We made it." Yara whispered. "Well, where are we?" Connor hesitated. "Near a black hole. But this might be a way out." Lena frowned. "That doesn't make sense. Nothing escapes a black hole. Not light. Not us." But Connor didn't look away from the screen. "Unless it's something else. Unless it's not real." They argued for hours. But their options were running out. The shuttle wouldn't survive another jump. Their oxygen would last only a few days more. So they turned toward the black hole. As they approached, the stars began to stretch. Time felt strange. Lena's thoughts moved slowly. Connor forgot words mid-sentence. Yara started whispering again, but not in her voice. It was the black hole. It was speaking. At first, it was soft, a hum in their minds, a low echo of thoughts that didn't belong to them. Lena heard her mother's voice, calling her home. Yara laughed like a child. Connor kept blinking, like he couldn't trust what he saw. Then the visions began. Lena stood on Earth, but the sky was red. The buildings were twisted. Her home was empty, but she could hear her father crying in the next room. Connor saw himself as an old man, alone, floating through space with a dead ship and no one to save him. Yara was on a planet made of mirrors. Every reflection showed her a different version of herself. Some screaming, some smiling, all broken. Inside the shuttle, their bodies were still, but their minds were drifting. Lena forced herself to move, to focus. She slammed her hand against the control panel. "Wake up. It's not real." Connor gasped. "It's pulling us in." The shuttle shook. The stars twisted around them like smoke. The black hole pulsed again. This time they all heard it, together. "You belong to us now." The voice wasn't loud. It was calm, gentle, like a parent speaking to a child. But it chilled them to the core. Yara screamed, "It's inside my head." Lena grabbed her. "Fight it. It's not real. It's feeding on us." Connor hit the emergency thrusters. The shuttle groaned, tried to escape the pull. But it didn't feel like gravity anymore. It felt like hands, invisible hands, holding them in place. Lena pulled up a scan. "This isn't a real black hole. It's built." Connor turned sharply. "Built? By who?" Lena shook her head. "I don't know, but it's alive." The screen showed strange symbols, patterns that weren't human. Something ancient, something intelligent. "It's a trap," she said. "It waits here. For ships. For mines." The ship twisted again. The lights flickered. One wall turned completely black, as if the black hole had reached inside. Then Lena saw something, in the darkness of the screen. A face. Not human. Eyes too wide. No mouth. A shape made of stars. It looked right at her. "You've come far," it whispered. "We've watched you. Grown you. Now your turn." Lena backed away. "We're not yours." But it didn't answer. The black hole pulsed again, and pain shot through her skull. Connor dropped to his knees. Yara cried silently, her eyes wide, staring at nothing. "We're losing them," Lena thought. "We're losing ourselves." She ran to the controls. She remembered something, the fail-safe system. A last jump. It would destroy the ship, but maybe throw them out of reach. She activated the countdown. Connor crawled toward her. "You're going to kill us." "No," she said. "I'm going to save what's left of us." The voice inside the ship grew louder. "You cannot leave." The walls of the shuttle cracked. Black mist seeped through. Yara screamed and started laughing at the same time. Lena hit the final button. A flash of white light. Then silence. Lena opened her eyes. The shuttle floated in a field of debris. The black hole was gone. Connor groaned beside her. Yara was unconscious again, but breathing. They had escaped. But something wasn't right. Lena felt it. In her bones. In her thoughts. A whisper. Very soft. Very far. But still there. "You belong to us now." The stars were gone. Outside the ship's windows, there was nothing. No planets, no galaxies, no light. Just a thick, endless darkness. It was not just space. It was emptiness. The kind that made you feel like you weren't supposed to exist. Lena stared at the control screen. Static. Every signal sent to Earth was unanswered. She tried again. "Command, this is Orion. Do you copy?" Only silence replied. Connor floated behind her, holding onto a metal beam for balance. Still nothing. She shook her head. It's like Earth was never there. He looked out the window. We're in dead space. Dead space. A place beyond any known star chart. A void where even signals could not travel. It wasn't supposed to exist. But here they were. Yara was sitting in the corner, eyes closed. She hadn't spoken since they escaped the black hole. Her breathing was slow, steady, too steady. "We have to move," Lena said, trying to push the engines. "We can't stay in this place." But the engines didn't work. No thrust, no sound, no feedback. The ship was stuck, floating like a ghost. Days passed, or maybe hours. Time had stopped making sense. Connor tried to make jokes at first. Small ones. Harmless. But then his jokes stopped too. He began staring at walls, listening for something. "There's a sound in the silence," he whispered one night. "You hear it if you're quiet enough." Lena didn't answer. She had started to hear it too. A faint hum. Not mechanical. Not human. Just something old. It was Yara who spoke first, after 3 days of silence. She stood in the middle of the room and said words no one understood. Her voice was calm, soft, but the words were twisted. They sounded broken, like language that didn't belong in any human throat. Lena rushed to her. "Yara, what are you saying?" Yara looked at her. Her eyes were glassy, blank, like mirrors. Connor moved back slowly. "That's not her voice." Lena held Yara by the shoulders. "Can you hear me? Snap out of it." But Yara didn't blink, didn't move. She kept repeating the same phrase, again and again, and then she collapsed. They laid her on the bed. Her skin was cold. Her heartbeat slow. Her lips moved in silence now, still speaking that strange, dead language. Lena turned on every communication system the ship had. Emergency signals, bursts, beacons, anything. No one answered. The silence deepened. The walls began to feel closer. The corridors darker. Connor started seeing things. Shadows moving just out of reach. He swore he saw a hand press against the outside window. Just for a second. A hand with too many fingers. Lena checked the ship's scans. No life forms. No objects. No stars. No radiation. Nothing. Just them. And whatever was listening. Because something was. They could feel it. In the way the air felt heavy. In the way Yara's voice would rise for a moment, like she was arguing with someone who wasn't there. In the way Connor woke up screaming, claiming he saw Earth. But it had no oceans. No people. Just mouths. Lena didn't sleep anymore. Every time she closed her eyes, she dreamed of a great chasm, a tear in the fabric of space. And inside it, something watched. It didn't move. It didn't speak. But it waited. She tried one last time to reach out to Earth. "Please," she whispered. "If anyone's out there..." The screen flashed. Not a message. Not a signal. Just one word. "Return." Lena stepped back. The word faded from the screen. Connor stared at it. Return where? Lena didn't know. Yara sat up suddenly. She turned her head toward them. "I remember now," she said, but it wasn't her voice. Lena froze. "What do you remember?" Yara smiled, slow and unnatural. "We never left the black hole. We just think we did." Connor looked around. The walls of the ship were shaking slightly, vibrating, pulsing. Lena's hands trembled. "This isn't real," Yara whispered. "It's feeding." Then she screamed. Her eyes turned black. Her body twisted. And the silence roared. A silence so loud it shook their bones. And in that moment, Lena understood. The black hole was not the end. It was the doorway. And something had followed them through. The lights on the ship flickered. The silence in space had never felt so loud. Captain Lena stood alone in the command deck, her eyes fixed on the data screen. The ship was no longer fully under her control. The ancient force had started to spread through systems, wires, even the minds of her crew. They were not a team anymore. Not completely. Lena had locked herself inside the control room after one of the engineers, Cole, tried to open the airlock without a suit. He said something strange before he collapsed, his eyes blank, his voice a whisper. "The stars told me to go home." Home. But where was home now? The crew had spent centuries in space, their mind protected in cryo chambers. The original Earth they came from no longer existed. They were sent to find a future for humanity. But what they found was death, silence, and something ancient waiting in the dark. She tapped the console again. Static. Earth wasn't responding. She wasn't sure if Earth even existed anymore. The black hole they had passed near, the trap, the illusion, had swallowed more than time. It had changed things. Changed people. A soft knock at the door broke the silence. "Lena?" It was Ava's voice. Or something using Ava's voice. Lena stayed still. "Please, we need to talk. You're the only one left." Lena's hand hovered over the emergency burn protocol. It would ignite the ship's core, destroy the AI, the engines, the signal they were carrying. It would also kill everyone still on board, including herself. She wanted to cry, but she couldn't afford to. She remembered what she saw on the ancient tombs back on the dead planet. A warning. The symbols were simple but clear. A circle split open, lines coming out. Chaos. It meant release. It meant this being, wasn't meant to be awakened. But they did. "Lena, please open the door." Ava's voice came again. This time it was colder. Flat. Not Ava anymore. Lena replayed the last transmission they had sent toward Earth. It was filled with corrupted images, shapes, patterns, voices that didn't belong to humans. She had reviewed it frame by frame. It wasn't a message. It was a key, a code that can infect any system, any mind, if Earth received it. No, she couldn't let that happen. The lights dimmed further. Emergency power kicked in. The ship was failing. She looked at the last surviving crew log. Just 4 names. Hers. Ava. Mikkel. Reyes. 2 of them were already gone, taken, or changed. She played the last voice log from Mikkel before he disappeared. "We thought we were explorers," he had said, "but we were cargo." The ship was always a message. The knock came again. Harder. "Lena, let us in." The word us echoed like thunder inside her skull. She knew now that this wasn't about survival. It was about choice. She had 2. 1. Send the final jump coordinates to Earth and pray someone that could fight what was coming. 2. Trigger the burn. She opened the camera feed for the hallway. What she saw nearly made her scream. Ava stood outside, but her face was wrong. Too still. Her smile was like a crack in stone. And behind her, Mikkel walked forward with a strange twist in his spine, like something inside him was pulling the strings. They were shells now. Hollow. Empty of self. Full of something else. She whispered to herself, "We're not bringing this home." Her fingers hovered over the red key. But then one last voice. From the speaker. Faint. Shaky. "Lena, this is Reyes. I'm in the lower deck. I'm not one of them." Lena froze. Alive? Someone was still human? "Help me. Please, they're using the systems. Don't let them take the ship." Lena had no idea if it was real. Could be another trick. But what if it wasn't? Could she risk burning the ship with one good soul left? She hit the mic. "Reyes, prove it you." Silence. Then, "You had a dog back on Earth. Her name was Clover. She barked during every pre-launch test." Lena's breath caught. That was true. No one else knew. Her hand shook. She had a third choice now. Reach Reyes. Try to reset the systems. Maybe shut the ship down the safe way. But it would mean opening the doors. Facing the hollow ones. Time was running out. She grabbed her suit, her torch, and unlocked the control room. The hallway was empty. She stepped out slowly. Every light flickered like a heartbeat. She could feel the ship itself breathing. Down in the engine deck, shadows moved. She stayed close to the wall, moving silently. Suddenly, a voice behind her. "Lena?" She turned fast. Nothing. She ran. Down the narrow corridors, past cryopods filled with broken glass and old memories. Finally, she found Reyes. He was bruised, bleeding, but his eyes were his own. "You're real," she said. He nodded. "We don't have much time." Together, they reached the engine core. "We can fry the signal," Reyes said, "but it'll disable everything. Life support, navigation, even gravity." "It's worth it," Lena said. As they worked, the ship shook. The hollow ones were coming. They ran the code, entered the sequence. And just as the creatures burst through the hatch, screaming in a sound that wasn't made by human lungs, the system blinked red, initiating full burn. Lena grabbed Reyes' hand. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For still being human." The ship exploded in a brilliant flash, sending waves of disrupted signal into the void. Far away, in deep space, Earth satellites picked up the noise. But it was just static. Empty. Clean. Lena's voice, recorded just moments before the end, floated to the cold vacuum of space, carried on a dying wave of sound. "We found the truth, and it's too late.